so deep that even its own pilots scarcely understood its true power. This is the story of the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, the plane that outran time itself. When the Second World War ended in 1945, the sky did not become peaceful. Instead, a new enemy emerged: uncertainty. The Cold War began not with bullets, but with questions. What was the Soviet Union building? Where were its missile sites? How powerful had its bomb become? No satellite existed yet. No drone. No GPS. If the United States wanted answers, someone had to fly into danger, into forbidden air, above hostile territory, beyond the reach of radar and reason. And so, in the quiet desert of California, a man named Clarence Kelly Johnson was handed an impossible task: create an aircraft that could fly higher than 80,000 feet, faster than Mach 3, and survive what no pilot had survived before. The president wanted eyes on the Soviet Union. Johnson would give him a ghost. Johnson was no ordinary engineer. He led a small, secretive division inside Lockheed, a team so trusted, so fast, and so inventive that the CIA called it simply Skunk Works. They worked behind barbed wire and black curtains, building machines that seemed to come from another century. After the success of the U-2 spy plane, the Soviets adapted quickly. Surface-to-air missiles could now reach U-2 altitude. America needed something no missile could catch, something that didn't just survive a threat, but outran it. Kelly Johnson gathered his engineers and wrote a single sentence on the board: "Speed is the only defense." From that moment, the concept for the Blackbird was born. A jet that would fly so high the sky turned dark, so fast that shock waves curled around its frame, and so stealthy that radar would see only a whisper of heat. Its shape began to take form: long, needle-like, almost alien. Delta wings blended into a fuselage that narrowed and twisted like a predator built from geometry. Twin engines the length of cars. Titanium skin angled to scatter radar waves. Nothing like it had ever existed. Nothing since has matched it. But the project was dangerous. Titanium was rare. America had almost none. Skunk Works quietly purchased tons of it through fake companies, from the Soviet Union itself. The irony was staggering. The material for the aircraft built to spy on the Soviets came from the Soviets. Piece by piece, the Blackbird took shape in secret. Workers couldn't speak of what they were building. Not to family, not to friends. When the sun hit the hangar right, the unfinished aircraft shimmered like a shadow trapped in metal. Technicians called it the Articles. Pilots, when they finally saw it, called it the Beast. On 22nd December 1964, the prototype took to the sky. Its engines roared with a sound no one had ever heard. A sound not of flight, but of something breaking free from Earth. The test pilots felt the aircraft wanting more, always more. More speed, more sky, more horizon. The SR-71 was no longer a project. It was a glimpse of the future. A machine built not for war, but for knowledge. Not to attack, but to reveal the world below argued in politics and fear. Above them, in the thin, cold silence near space, a black arrow waited to be unleashed. The SR-71 did not simply fly faster than any aircraft before it. It rewrote the rules of flight itself. At Mach 3, the world turns hostile. Air behaves like a liquid. Friction becomes fire. Metal expands, contracts, warps, and tears itself apart. To survive such punishment, the Blackbird had to be built from something stronger than aluminum, lighter than steel, and resistant to temperatures of 600 degrees Celsius on the nose and leading edges. Only one material could handle it: titanium. But titanium was rare, expensive, difficult to machine, and almost entirely controlled by a country that wanted the Blackbird to fail, the Soviet Union. So the CIA created a web of shell companies, quietly buying Soviet titanium through neutral countries. Shipments arrived without labels, without origins, without questions. That titanium became the skin of the SR-71, a Cold War paradox forged into metal. Working with the metal was agony. Titanium cracked if drilled too quickly. It ignited if overheated. It dulled tools instantly. Workers had to invent new cutting methods, new rivets, new fuel lines, new sealants, even new gloves to handle it. But every piece mattered, because at Mach 3, the aircraft grew, literally. The heat of flight made the fuselage expand nearly 10 centimeters. This meant nothing could fit tightly on the ground. Not the panels, not the seams, not even the fuel tanks. When fueled on the runway, the SR-71 leaked rivers of jet fuel. A special high-temperature blend called JP7 dripped onto the concrete. It looked broken. It looked unfinished. But once the aircraft accelerated and the skin heated, the gaps sealed themselves. At speed, the Blackbird became whole. Its engines were an engineering masterpiece that defied classification. They weren't pure turbojets. They weren't pure ramjets. They were a hybrid of both, a machine that transformed itself mid-flight. Below Mach 2, the engine worked like a massive afterburning jet. Above Mach 2.5, the airflow bypassed the turbojet entirely, converting the nacelle into a ramjet. Air slammed into the spike at the front of the intake. Shock waves compressed it, and the engine devoured it. Pilots described the acceleration as relentless, as if the Blackbird didn't fly through the sky, but pulled the sky into itself. Everything about the SR-71 existed for one purpose: to make speed not just possible, but unstoppable. The cockpit canopy sat at perfect angles to scatter radar. The fuselage curved like a shark's body, designed to slice through pressure waves. The wings were thin, swept, and elegant, shaped for the world above 70,000 feet. Every inch of the aircraft was a compromise between physics and ambition. Even the paint served a purpose. Its matte black skin wasn't for appearance. It dissipated heat, absorbed radar energy, and reduced friction at extreme altitude. By 1966, the first operational SR-71 fleet stood ready. Pilots trained for months in pressure suits, similar to those worn by astronauts. They learned to breathe pure oxygen. They learned to trust systems that could kill them as easily as they could save them. One veteran said, "Flying the SR-71 wasn't like flying an airplane. It was like riding a controlled explosion." But this machine was not built for war. It was built for clarity, to see across continents, to gather the truth in a world drowning in secrets. The next chapter of the Blackbird story would take it into the stratosphere, into a region where only the brave and the brilliant could survive. By 1943, the Mosquito had proven itself as Britain's fastest, most flexible aircraft. Now it would prove something even more powerful. Precision could be just as devastating as brute force. One of the first missions to demonstrate this came in September 1942. when 4 mosquitoes streaked through daylight toward Oslo, Norway. Their target was the Gestapo headquarters, a fortress-like building that had become the center of Nazi control in the region. Flying only 50 feet above the fjords, they released their bombs with split-second timing. The structure was shattered, archives destroyed, and resistance fighters freed from interrogation. Every mosquito made it home. That mission became the blueprint for a new kind of air warfare. Small teams, low altitude, total precision. Crews learned to fly through the letterbox, skimming over trees and rivers, timing their attacks to the second. The aircraft's speed and agility let them pull off raids no heavy bomber could even attempt. In October 1943, mosquitoes from 464 Squadron attacked the Gestapo headquarters in Aarhus, Denmark, again flying below rooftop level. Windows shattered, walls collapsed, and vital intelligence records were destroyed without harming nearby civilians. Then came one of the most famous operations of all, Operation Jericho, the Amiens prison raid of February 1944. The mission was desperate. Allied prisoners, including French resistance members, were about to be executed. 19 mosquitoes, escorted by Typhoon fighters, raced across the French countryside barely 20 feet above the ground. They hit the outer walls with pinpoint accuracy, then returned to breach the main cell block. Over 250 prisoners escaped in the confusion. 3 mosquitoes were lost, but the survivors called it the proudest moment of their lives. Each of these attacks showed what the mosquito could do that no other bomber could match: strike at will, anywhere, with uncanny accuracy. Even the Germans acknowledged it. Luftwaffe Commander Hermann Göring, furious after repeated attacks on Berlin, was quoted as saying, "The British, with their wooden aircraft, make fools of us all. If I only had a squadron of mosquitoes, I could win the war." It wasn't only bombing runs. Mosquitoes harassed German night fighter bases, shredded trains, and attacked Gestapo convoys. Their photo recon versions scouted enemy movements before D-Day. Others flew as pathfinders, marking targets for the slower, heavier bombers that followed. From the deserts of North Africa to the frozen fjords of Norway, the mosquito became the symbol of precision, daring, and speed. Every mission seemed impossible on paper, yet every success felt like a reminder. This aircraft wasn't designed to destroy cities, but to destroy the idea that a small, light plane couldn't change a war. By 1944, pilots said they could feel the confidence of the whole factory behind them, from the carpenters who shaped its wings to the women who glued its panels. The Mosquito wasn't just an aircraft, it was Britain's ingenuity in flight form, a statement that intelligence could win where brute force failed. Others flew as pathfinders, marking targets for the slower, heavier bombers that followed. From the deserts of North, the Mosquito became the symbol of precision, daring, and speed. Every mission seemed impossible on paper, yet every success felt like a reminder. This aircraft wasn't designed to destroy cities, but to destroy the idea that a small, light plane couldn't change a war. In 1944, pilots said they could feel the confidence of the whole factory behind them, from the carpenters who shaped its wings to the women who glued its panels. The Mosquito wasn't just an aircraft. Ingenuity in flight form. Intelligence could win where others flew as pathfinders, marking targets for the slower, heavier bombers that followed. From the deserts of North, Every mission seemed impossible on paper. By the middle of 1944, the Mosquito had become one of the most versatile machines in the sky. It could photograph, bomb, scout, hunt, and fight, all in the same day if needed. No other aircraft in World War II wore so many faces, and every version seemed to master its new role immediately. The fighter-bomber variant, the FB Mark VI, was perhaps the best all-round combat aircraft ever built. Armed with four 20mm Hispano cannons and 4.303 machine guns in its nose, it could also carry bombs or rockets beneath its wings. Pilots launched it against railways, convoys, and airfields across occupied Europe. At full throttle, it skimmed the ground at 350 miles per hour, strafing locomotives until the steam from ruptured boilers hid it from view. German troops called it the Whistling Death. Then came the night fighter versions. Equipped with early airborne radar, these sleek black mosquitoes stalked the darkness, hunting down German bombers as they approached British cities. Their pilots flew by the faint green glow of cathode ray screens, guided by ground controllers and instinct. In a single night, they could shoot down half a dozen intruders, quietly, efficiently, unseen. When the Germans began launching V-1 flying bombs, Mosquito crews rose to meet them. The V-1s flew at nearly 400 miles per hour, but the Mosquito could still catch them. Pilots learned to tip them off course with their wingtips, or blast them mid-air with cannon fire. It was a strange, deadly dance between speed and precision. In the Far East, tropicalized Mosquitoes fought a different war. Operating from Burma and Ceylon, they raided Japanese supply lines through jungle and monsoon. The wooden airframes handled heat and humidity far better than metal ones, and local workshops could repair them with simple carpentry tools. Everywhere it went, the Mosquito adapted. Proof that good design needs no translation. The aircraft also became the eyes of the Allied advance. Reconnaissance versions photographed D-Day beaches, V-weapon sites, and the crumbling infrastructure of the Reich. Each sortie meant hours alone at high altitude, unarmed, trusting speed and altitude to bring the crew home. The clarity of those photographs still amazes historians. Many are used in documentaries and books to this day. By late 1944, the Mosquito was serving with the RAF, the Royal Navy, the USAAF, the RCAF, and even the Free French. Over 30 different versions existed: bomber, fighter, night fighter, pathfinder, reconnaissance, and even trainer. Wherever it flew, it earned affection. Crews described it as honest, responsive, almost human. It felt alive in a way few machines ever do. The Mosquito had started as a desperate improvisation. Now it was the RAF's most effective multi-role aircraft and one of the fastest operational planes of the entire war. Its plywood skin and balsa heart had outclassed steel and armor. Amazes historians. Many are used to this day. By late 1944, the Mosquito AF, the Royal Navy, the USAAF, the RCAF, and even the Free French. Over 30 different versions exist: pathfinder, reconnaissance, and even trainer. Wherever it flew, it earned affection. Crews honest, responsive, almost human. It felt alive in a way few machined as a desperate improvisation. Now it was the RAF's most effective multi-role aircraft and one of the fastest operational planes of the entire war. Its plywood skin and balsa amazes historians. Many are used to this day. By late 1944, the Mosquito AF, the Royal Navy, the USAAF, the RCAF, and even the Free French. Over 30 different versions exist: Pathfinder, Reconnaissance, and even Trainer. Wherever it flew, it earned affection. Crews honest, responsive, in a way few machined as a desperate improvisation. Now it was the RAF's most effective multi-role aircraft and one of the fastest operational planes of the entire war. Its plywood many are used to this day. By late 1944, the Mosquito AF, the Royal Navy, the USAAF, the RCAF, and even the Free 30 different versions exist. Reconnaissance, and even Trainer. Wherever it flew, it earned affection. Crews honest, responsive, in a way few machined as a desperate improvisation. Now it was the RAF's most effective multi-role aircraft and one of the fastest operational planes of the entire war. Its plywood many are used to this day. When the guns fell silent in 1945, the Mosquito's engines cooled for the first time in years. Across Europe, Asia, and the Pacific, crews climbed down from aircraft streaked with dust and oil, their uniforms smelling faintly of glue and wood smoke. The war was over, but the Mosquito's story was far from finished. More than 7,700 Mosquitoes had been built in Britain, Canada, and Australia. Factories that had once turned out furniture and pianos had built one of the fastest planes in the world. After the war, it found new lives everywhere it went. Photo reconnaissance variants mapped continents, bomber versions became survey aircraft, weather planes, and even record setters. In 1947, a stripped-down Mosquito set a world speed record of 416 miles per hour, faster than any piston-engine aircraft before it. Others went on to serve with air forces from Israel to Sweden, still reliable years after the war that created them had ended. Its wooden frame aged gracefully, though humidity and time took their toll. By the early 1950s, metal jets had replaced the wooden wonder, but none flew with quite the same spirit. Pilots remembered it not for its kills, but for its grace. They said it moved like thought, answering every touch with perfect balance. Engineers remembered it as proof that creativity could dad convention. When materials were scarce, imagination filled the gap. In its curves and joints lay the fingerprint of thousands of carpenters, glaziers, and craftsmen who built history with their hands. Today, only a handful of Mosquitoes still fly. The roar of twin Merlins in perfect harmony can still be heard at air shows in Britain, Canada, and New Zealand. When one lifts from the runway, spectators often fall silent, not from nostalgia alone, but from recognition. They are watching genius take flight. Museums preserve others in gleaming condition, their varnished wooden skins reflecting hangar lights. Children press their hands against the glass, and veterans stand quietly, remembering friends and missions long past. The smell of old wood and engine oil carries stories words can't quite hold. Aviation historians often call the Mosquito the most successful multi-role aircraft of the war, but that phrase hardly captures it. It was an idea made real, that lightness could be strength, that intelligence could beat mass, and that courage could take any shape, even one built from balsa and glue. When we look at a Mosquito today, we see more than an aircraft. We see what human beings can create when every material, every rule, and every assumption says no. We see proof that brilliance isn't measured in armor or weight, but in imagination. The de Havilland Mosquito remains, even now, the perfect contradiction. Delicate yet deadly, simple yet sophisticated, humble yet legendary. A machine born from wood, faith, and defiance. A reminder that the sky has never belonged only to those who follow the rules, but to those who dare to rewrite them. Weakness could be strength, that intelligence could beat mass. Any shape. Balsa and glue. Mosquito today, we see more than an aircraft. We see what human beings can create when every material and every assumption says no. We see proof measured in armor or imagination remains, even now, the perfect contradiction. Delicate yet deadly, humble, a machine born from and defiance. Has never belonged only to. Thanks so much for listening and watching my content. I hope you really enjoyed. Hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn post notifications on.